develop new therapies. This is what I want to do because I said that I'm a geek. But at the end of the day, you want to develop and to do one trial and to make sure that everyone in the world can use it and can trust it. And it's not a basic science. At the end of the day, people are going to be treated with this based on these results. So you need to do a very accurate study, which will be multi-center, multinational study. And at the end of the day, you want the European, United States, sometimes in Japan, everyone will accept these results. So it's a very interesting, very straightforward. You need to be very, very accurate, but you need to be able to act in a worldwide environment.
Iddo Peleg, welcome to 20 Minute Leaders. Welcome to this show. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll dive into your world, the world of Yonalink, uncover really cool acronyms that I haven't heard of before I got a chance to invite you to the show. And so, as I mentioned to you before, I expect quite a few people to not know a lot of the things that we will be talking about today. So this is an introduction from me, and this is an introduction for everybody listening. So I'm excited to enable a platform for that experience. And so thank you again for being here and very much welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yes, and I must say, Michael, I'm a clinical trial geek, so I need to deliver very clearly, all the acronyms and all the things about clinical trial because I think this is fascinating.
I mean, it's the basis for so much of the medicine that we have and the operational work that we do on our bodies and minds and how we treat experimentation when it comes to medicine. When I develop AI systems as a startup and for software and for analytics, I do my trials, on different cloud services and data that comes in. And when shit hits the fan, then we can reproduce and run things, and you get to do this in the physical world and in much higher stakes and much more important, I think, areas. And so, tell me a little bit about your world and what does this mean for you to be a geek of clinical trials?
So, when I started my professional life, I started a PhD in Weizmann Institute, and I said, after 1.5 years, I said, okay, so what? This is what I'm going to do. I think it's fascinating, but it's not for me to stay next to the bench. I said, okay, I want to be the operational side. And then I left my PhD and I started to learn an MBA in the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And very quickly I said, okay, develop new therapies. This is what I want to do. Why? Because I said that I'm a geek, but at the end of the day, you want to develop it to do one trial and to make sure that everyone in the world can use it and can trust it. And it's not a basic science. At the end of the day, people are going to be treated with this based on these results. So you need to do a very accurate study, which will be multi-center, multinational study. And at the end of the day, you want the European, United States, sometimes in Japan, everyone will accept these results. So it's a very interesting, very straightforward. You need to be very, very accurate, but you need to be able to act in a worldwide environment with so many multicultural environment, and to execute exactly the same project on the same time all over the world.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's a pretty. Sounds like a complex task to uncover. Why is this important for us? Why is this if this is done successfully, what does it enable? What impact does it have on our society, on humanity, on our ability to progress health forwards?
So almost everything starts with clinical trial. All the healthcare that all the treatment, all the devices, everything, it must start with a clinical trial. And if you think about how many basic research you have in the academic world, people are trying to look for a lot of things. But at the end of the day, you need to say, okay, you have this idea. Now we need to be able to put it in a way that at the end of the day, It won't just be like a preclinical, just a basic search.
Why is this important? And you said it all starts with clinical trials.
Yeah, so you think about the world that we know. It looks to you like obvious. You're going to your physician, you're getting a prescription, you can go to the pharmacy, you get your, your drug. But before that, there was a lot of efforts that can bring you to the point that someone can give it to you. And all the time, we want to develop better drugs, better treatments, better medical devices, and everything must be approved. Everything must be accurate. So everything starts with a clinical trial. That at the end of that, you can submit the data to the regulatory agencies, to the FDA, to the European different regulatory agencies, and say, I have a solution, it's accurate, and it's safe.
Okay, so let's dive into the data, because data is where it sounds like this is where the core of it. That's the most important aspect. What are the I guess the aspects that make the data safe or make it secure in a way that would be accepted then as reputable data?
So when I want to start and give this proof to the regulatory agencies that my medical device or the drug is safe and effective, first of all, I need to, after I did like all the preclinical tests, I need to draft a protocol saying, this is a plan. This is how I'm going to do the clinical trial. You have a few phases and you have a few plans, but let's leave as a side because all of them are exactly the same. Meaning, this is a plan. The plan needs to be approved by the ethics committee. And then after it's been approved, you need to go and approach the medical centers or the hospitals and say, this is a plan. I want you to do it in your facility. Agreement is signed between the clinical trial sponsor, the medical device or the pharma company, and the medical center. And then the study can start. Meaning you can start enroll patients and treat them with your novel therapy. Now, think about it that as you're moving in the different stages of getting approved, at the beginning you're just saying that it's safe. After that, you're saying it's safe and effective, and then you want to do it in a big scale that it's to show that it's statistically significant improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to do the study all over the world. Okay, think about in an average oncology study, an average phase 3 oncology trial with 3,000 patients all over the world, 70 medical centers it can be. You need to collect exactly the same data with the same interval from the same population of patients. It's almost the opposite for big data and metadata analysis. You want specific data from specific patients in specific intervals. So how do you collect this data? Right now, there is no integration with all the medical centers, and there is no way to take the data out of the electronic health record, the EHR, first acronym from today. So you need to get it, and you need to put it in the clinical trial database. We call it the EDC, electronic data capture, but there is no connectivity. So how do you get this data? People at the medical centers, data managers need to sit with two screens and copy the data for one screen from the EHR screen to the EDC, to the clinical trial database screen. Now, in any industry, if you copy data manually, you have mistakes. But there is no way you can submit data with inaccurate data to the regulatory agencies. So the clinical trial sponsor, the pharma or the medical device companies, send representatives to the medical centers, and what they do? Again, they sit with two screens and verifying all the data. Phase 3 oncology trial, we collect more than 3.6 million data points. The majority of these data points being captured and verified manually.
Wow.
There is no other way to do it so far. It's
And
a very, very manpower market, yes.
And it's a two-step system already. The capture is done it's 3 steps. So the capture is done in the device, and then you have a human that transfers from the EHR to EDC, and then on top of that you have an additional verifier so that hopefully, if you make some mistake in the transmission from EHR to EDC, you now have somebody catching that, and then the regulation hopefully says, okay, maybe this is good enough, right?
Yes, and according to a lot of the research that has been done for data that was submitted to the FDA, even after this verification process,
Yeah.
still in every study we have between 5 to 7% mistakes.
5 to 7% mistakes. That's a lot. It's a lot of mistakes.
So you need to enroll more patients into the study in order to mask the mistakes that you have.
Makes sense. No, having, I guess, having a bigger sample size sounds like a good thing generally, but it sounds like it's not being done for the right reasons or the right motivations necessarily. Why is it difficult? So, or is it difficult? I mean, what is sort of the, why didn't they come a few years ago and say, hey, I guess we shouldn't be doing this manual copying. Why don't we connect these endpoints together and have some software that does the data transmission? What's been happening in the market that made this a gap?
As a techie people, you usually said that the technology is one step ahead of the regulation, and the people in the government offices need to chase after the changes that is happening in the real world. Over here, it's just the opposite scenario. The FDA published in 2018 says, guys, enough is enough with this manual process. Start streaming data. Connect the EHR directly to the EDCs, to the clinical trial database. Even the EMA, the European regulatory agency said, guys, these are the fundamentals. This is how we should do that. Please follow. And yet, there is no solution in the market. The reason for that is also because of the technology. Even if two different medical centers has the same EHR, the same electronic health record, you still have different modification with it. So there was almost no way to do like on a scale. Yeah, like you have one solution, you can stream all the data. And from the other end, all the different EDCs, this system been designed to capture the data manually. So for every study, they needed to do like a new mapping or a new integration. So almost these two different sides, the EHR and the EDCs, they don't know how to speak with each other.
Right. It's super interesting. And tell me a little bit about your background. So what got you here?
So my background, as I said, I have a master's degree in life science and also an MBA, and I worked in the clinical industry for 20 years. And sometime during 2018, when I saw the FDA guidance, I started to dive into this problem because I work with EHRs, I work with the ADC, and I said, it doesn't make sense. The FDA is pushing the industry instead of being the opposite way. And in 2019, I joined my co-founder, Gav Martel, and we decided, okay, guys, we are going to be the guys that are going to solve this EHR to EDC, and we are going to build a solution for that.
And was this a no-brainer for hospitals or the labs to adopt? Did they look at this and say, oh, where have you been my whole life? I've been copying manually, and now I get to do this. What has been the response? Because there must have been some level of education or some level of assurance that you had to do. I noticed I go on the website. There's a big beautiful section showing probably more compliance logos than I've seen in a long time.
Yes, so it's very difficult because you need to be compliant with all the clinical trial regulation, with all the EHR regulation, and with all the GDPR, HIPAA integration. So it's a very highly regulated industry.
Right.
So and this is what he said. If it was easy, everyone could do that. But you need to convince, first of all, no one was fired because they worked with IBM. And people are saying, the company invested 50 million, 70 million just to get to the point that they have a clinical trial. So it's saying, okay, guys, copy data manually. It's accepted by the FDA. It's safe. Let's invest another few millions. Let's do it in the manual way. Streaming, I get it that it's more quick, that it's quicker, it's maybe safer, but let's do the manual way because this is We know that this is okay with the FDA. So it's a very tough market. In general, the healthcare market, it's very hard to disrupt and to change habit, and it's very very slow. So we're starting with a small startup, moving to a bigger companies. The big pharmas, the Pfizer's, they are going to be the last one to adopt this kind of technology.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so that makes sense to me. And if we're playing sort of the long game and looking 3-4 years into the future, how do you envision the space?
So right now you can see when you look about the database of the clinical trial, they mentioned the EDCs. Right now it's just a fancy Excel because it was a system that developed to capture the data manually. You have small EDCs with three very talented people that developers that made a very nice and advanced EDCs up to companies with thousands of employees, and you have hundreds of players like that because it's a simple system. We envision that in the few years you will see consolidation of this market, and instead of hundreds of players, you will have, I don't know, 5, 10 very strong players that knows how to integrate with thousands of different EHRs, harmonize the data and put it in the right field in the database. And I think this is where the market goes, from hundreds of players to a very limited number of, because it's a different players, because it's a different game to capture the data manually or to stream it.
Absolutely. And how do you feel your experience in the life sciences, besides having a very good understanding as to the problem and having experienced the problem firsthand, how do you find your background being relevant here? In other words, I'm thinking through. There's so many different incredible opportunities in the life sciences in general, especially this now with the transformations that were given through computing chips and hardware and AI technology. So I'm curious how you see the barrier of entry to this complex organism called the healthcare industry, which is so difficult to disrupt, and you have to really understand it. What would be sort of your advice to other entrepreneurs that may be growing passions for these types of markets, but they're not sure of whether their background is suitable to enter the space?
So you have two different approaches, or two different ways to approach this market. One is usually you said, I have a very cool technology. Let's see how it can fit into this healthcare market. And sometimes it works. It works only if you have a very, very strong technology. And I will get to it in a second. The second approach is, okay, this is a problem. Let's find a technology to solve it. So I think the magic is usually to do that, to try and combine them. So because if you want the healthcare industry to use your technology, you must solve them a real problem.
Yeah.
And by the way, and what we see, even with the VCs are saying, okay, we are getting that this is a real problem, so we are willing to give you more time and more capital, because at the end of the day, everyone gets that data will be streamed from the EHR to DC. We are not going to continue copy data for years ahead. So the only question if it's going to be Yonalink or it's going to be a different company, and there are strong competitors for Yonalink, but everyone gets the data is going to be streamed. So when you have a real problem and a strong technology, so the VCs are willing to give you more time and more capital because they know that this solution is going to be solved. And I think this is the most important. You need to know that you're solving a real problem.
That's where it all starts from. I completely agree. And Ido, what do you get most excited by? So what really piques your energy and your interest in the day to day?
First of all, it's my family. Okay, this is my energy. So seeing my kids growing, this is the most important thing for me. But after that, I would say, I said at the beginning, we started the company. I lived in Toronto, but we registered the company in Israel. And for the first time, when I sat in my home in a small kibbutz next to Jerusalem, and I saw the data streamed from an EHR in Stanford, I said, wow, this is where we need to be. I need to be able to sit in my home at 11:30 p.m. and see the data of a patient that just came for a visit in Stanford in the West Coast. This is where we want to be.
Amazing. I love it. Iddo, thank you so much for the time and the presence and the energy. Really appreciate it. And this was eye-opener for me in many ways, particularly to a new industry, but also to some very fundamentals that are taking place that are not, that I think that in other industries wouldn't even fathom having, yet an industry so critical like that of the clinical trials obviously still has a lot of areas to grow. So thank you very much for the time, and I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you for having me. Take care.
Amazing.